The poor politicians, they just don't have enough of your money, so they need to borrow more, put America deeper into debt. This year, you taxpayers, you're so cheap, you're only giving them $2.2 trillion. Look at that. That's not enough? They need more? Yes, says the president. If they don't get more money, they may not be able to send out Social Security checks, pay the benefits our veterans deserve. Really? $2 trillion isn't enough? I don't get it. With $2 trillion, they can pay Social Security and Medicare and the interest on the debt and still have hundreds of billions left over. $2 trillion's plenty. It's billions more than our entire government spent when President Bush took office. What's the problem? The problem is that Republicans and Democrats under Presidents Bush and Obama doubled spending, doubled it. This year the government plans to spend $3.8 trillion. Look at that number. That's a reason we have a growing debt. President Obama says we need to raise taxes to cover that? I don't think so. It's the spending that's the problem. This chart shows how much different administrations have spent adjusted for inflation. Spending rose during every administration and then exploded under Presidents Bush and Obama. So because of those increases, the president says we need to increase revenues. No way, says Grover Norquist, who heads Americans for Tax Reform. Some say the reason there isn't a debt deal on the table yet is because of you and your pledge.
Well, I think the reason there isn't a tax increase on the table is that 235 members of the House of Representatives signed a pledge never to raise taxes, a pledge to their voters, and 41 senators did. So we've got quite a number of members of the House and Senate, many of them elected by Tea Party activists over the last election cycle. They came to Washington and said, we're not going to raise taxes, end of conversation, we will cut spending.
But you make it sound so passive. You went to them and said, hey, don't you want to sign this? What do you say?
Absolutely. Well, we share it with them. Often political activists and Tea Party activists share the pledge with candidates to say, if you're going to run for office, will you commit in writing, not in a speech, not in an aside, but in writing, with two witnesses, not that we don't trust anybody, but we have two witnesses, and it's dated, and then we make many copies and share them with everybody, because we want to make sure that if people take the pledge, that voters know they intend to keep it.
Well, at the start of the show, I played clips of people outside the studio saying, debt ceiling? What's that? I don't know. But in fairness, the majority of people did at least have some idea, and some, like this young woman, were pretty well informed. What are they fighting about?
Well, they're fighting about the debt limit, and the Republicans want to not have any taxes because Grover Norquist made them sign all this stuff, and they can't look like idiots.
So, randomly, this young woman on the street, you're the guy. The Republicans want no taxes.
No tax increases.
Well, that's what she meant, but I think the message is Republicans want no taxes.
Well, we ought to go with lower taxes to start with. We can work on pushing the envelope, but we'll start with not increasing the tax burden. Look, step one, don't raise taxes. Step two, bring taxes down. But only if you take tax increases off the table do you even begin to have a conversation about spending restraint. There have been some good proposals. The Ryan plan dropped spending by $6 trillion.
Eventually.
Nice step in the right direction. Over 10 years. And the most recent plan is a $2.5 trillion spending reduction from Obama's higher levels. But we wouldn't even...
Yeah, none of these are real cuts, right? They're all cuts in the projected increase.
Correct. Things are getting bad, and they're getting bad, worser, sooner, more. And what we need to do is reduce the damage that's being inflicted. But unless you say no to tax increases, you don't even begin to focus on spending. And that's what Obama wants to keep our focus off of. He wants us to talk about the deficit, not spending.
But he kind of, I think, won against you in some way, and that a lot of these things you call tax increases were kind of loopholes that went to private jet makers and the oil depletion allowance. It doesn't sound like a tax. It sounds like a special break for rich business.
Well, there are two reasons why we want to eliminate a lot of deductions and credits and reduce rates. One is you want to simplify the code. You want to take a lot of the goodies that politicians have laced into that code, particularly the green lobby, the so-called environmental lobby, gives tax credits to pixie dust energy projects.
Windmill and solar and all
Things, they call them alternative energy because they don't create energy.
But you're fine with getting rid of all these things if it's balanced.
As long as you reduce tax rates and it's not a hidden tax increase, yes.
Okay. Now, this talk